Tomorrow.
Are you serious?
No, not
Yeah, that's how he talked. Ask him. He goes, yeah, I
Welcome to the special meeting of the Sandusky
my
City
son
Commission.
like you do. And
Prior to tonight's meeting, we'll have an invocation offered by Commissioner Waddington, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
God our Father, as we gather here today for this meeting, give us the guidance and wisdom to make the proper decisions. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Director, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Poole?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Brady?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Twine?
Here.
And Mr. Waddington?
Here.
Mr.
We'll ask that Mr. Meinzer be, you can have a motion to have Mr. Meinzer excused.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second discussion. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Ms. Cresser, are there any residents' questions that you've received in writing regarding our one agenda item tonight?
No, Mr. President, I have not.
Are there any residents that wish to speak, come to the podium and speak regarding the agenda? It appears not. Commissioners, I think what we have to do next is accept the communication from staff recommending just one piece of legislation. Can I have a motion to accept this communication?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second discussion. Without objection, that motion is approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. We will turn to our one item that is on our agenda this evening. Ms. Preston, will you present that one item?
Yes, this is an ordinance providing for the submission to the electors of the City of Sandusky, proposed amendments to the Charter of the City of Sandusky as set forth in a petition submitted to the City Commission and declaring an emergency.
Commissioner, have you heard this ordinance? How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Murray?
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under Section 14 of the city's charter.
Second.
Got a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Heil, you are the author of this piece of legislation. I wonder if you'd share with us both the contents of the legislation and the chronology that got us here.
Sure. Through you, Commission President, before you, you have an ordinance that would basically accept the petitions that have been submitted contingent on the validity of their signatures and submit that to the Board of Elections to be placed on the November 2nd ballot. What we have here today, what happened was basically we received citizen petitions on Monday at 3:30 p.m. And our charter and the Ohio Constitution required that upon receiving 10% of the previous total vote in the previous municipal election, valid signatures, which is 351 signatures, that this legislative authority is required to submit that petition for the ballot at the next upcoming municipal election, which would be November 2nd. So we received these, which is the first step, Monday at 3:30 p.m. The finance director and myself received them from the citizens who are leading this petition drive. We reviewed them for our charter requirements as we're required to, and then very quickly, the next day by noon, passed them along to the Board of Elections, because the Board of Elections is actually the entity that verifies and confirms the validity of the signatures and gives us a final signature count to determine whether or not that 10% threshold has been met. We also asked the Board of Elections at that time for kind of a determination, because for most elections, the Board of Elections deadline is August 4th, so today at 4 p.m., by which petitions must be filed. And we asked them to, clarify that deadline, if it just needed to be the petitions or if it needed to be the entire authorizing ordinance with the ballot language as well. And they were unable to provide us an answer before this meeting started. Their legal counsel did not give us that opinion, couldn't explain to me that she did not have enough time. So we basically have before us, in an abundance of caution, we have drafted the ordinance with the understanding that it's contingent on the board verifying the 351 signatures so that we can submit that, if it's commission's pleasure, to the Board of Elections by 4 to hopefully comply with their deadlines as quickly as possible and avoid any confusion or ambiguity to make sure that if the citizen petition is enough signatures, it will be on the November election. Regarding today's vote, there's generally very little discretion that legislative authorities have in determining the validity of the actual language. It's not a subjective decision. We're actually required by our charter, so long as all the procedural requirements are met, to submit it on the ballot. And that is what we are here to do today. If there are any questions or anything that might require some extra clarification, I'm happy to answer those as well. But that is what you have before you. In your packet, you have the ordinance with the proposed ballot language, which is in the center section, some authorizing sections, and then also attached is the actual petition with the actual language that was submitted to us verbatim.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Murray?
So, Mr. Heil, I want to, and I think probably the entire commission wants to do this in a way that makes certain that this is more likely to get on the ballot than not.
Sure.
I want to make sure I explore with you what the contingency is, because what we really don't want to do is have the city incur the expense of a special election if that can be avoided. So the contingency, as I understand it, and as you have described it, and as I see here, though I might be wrong, is that the Board of Election just has to do its job and make sure that it verifies the signatures. We're not saying that has to be done today. That can be done anytime they deem appropriate, and then this gets paired with the petitions that they've approved.
That's correct. The Board of Elections technically has 10 days to verify signatures. They've informed us that they expect it to be done by tomorrow or Friday, but upon their verification and certification that the requisite number of signatures have been submitted, this ordinance would become effective, and they would be required to submit the ballot language for the November election.
Okay. That satisfies my question. Thank you.
Additional comments or questions, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Murray?
I'm just going to note that I think this is a really important right. It's a sacred right to take something like this by petition to the ballot. That's really important. I don't agree with the proposed charter change. It's not time to explore that today. There'll be plenty of opportunity for that in the months ahead. But this is a really important right that the citizens have, and that's why I'm taking a vote to make sure it goes on the ballot. But I want to make sure it's also clear that I don't agree with the proposal and would vote it down as a citizen.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Additional comments or questions, Commissioner? Mr. Heil and Mr. Orzik, I want to commend you both for the speed with which you've pulled this together in really literally less than 48 hours from receiving these petitions. We have moved for government at warp neck speed, I will say that. And I appreciate your efforts in doing that. Our efforts here tonight might be perfunctory because I don't think our vote really counts or matters. A no vote is not going to derail this, and it's not our intention to derail it. It is our intention to get this legislation forwarded before 4 o'clock tonight to the Board of Elections, and the process can continue. Mr. Cresser, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
I declare that ordinance passed. Mr. Heil, I will ask you to deliver that to the Board of Elections post haste.
We will. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second.